7:01. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we'll need a motion to approve the open session minutes for September 25th, 2017.
Make a motion to approve the open session minutes from September 25th, 2017.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Community comments? None? Okay. Well, it's nice to have such a big crowd in the audience tonight. That's exciting. No one's willing to speak, but that's okay. Administrators' comments.
Hi. The first thing that I'd like to report out tonight is something that we did that was a little bit unique a couple Fridays ago, and it was a district-wide challenge known as the Marshmallow Challenge. And we did it literally preschool through grade 12. And as I say in my background notes, it's really kind of a straightforward challenge where you give each team of kids 20 sticks of spaghetti, a yard of tape, a yard of string, and one marshmallow. And you basically say, okay, build the tallest possible tower that you can, and the marshmallow has to be up at the top. At face value, it sounds like a simple challenge, but it's not. I think our success rate was probably in the ballpark of about 15%. You know, really the big picture is this really was a tangible reminder of creating, you know, more meaningful, engaging, hands-on learning opportunities for kids. So I had the opportunity, I went through 3 of our 4 schools to see what was happening. I saw a lot of kids that were really engaged, collaborating, and most of all, having fun. As I also say in the background notes, we had a total of 345 teams, about 1,300 kids involved in this. I also put a link to Dave Quinn, who really was the brain trust behind this. Put together a Flipgrid page of over 160 different team reflections. I thought I'd just share a couple. Again, there isn't a lot of kids reflecting on tremendous success and, you know, and brilliant designs, but I thought I'd share a couple. Here's a group of 7th grade girls. God love them. I think they ended up with something like 29 inches.
Wow.
We did have a plan for this tower at first. We thought we were going to make kind of the part of it. And it was successful because it did stand up. And then we kind of added on to the top of that. All of us in our class, we all had like ideas to do it. And we also had those ideas that we wanted to test. Yeah, but one surprise is probably the most tall because like we didn't know that all of the spaghetti sticks would really like stand up. We thought it was gonna fall over at times.
He's got to turn up his computer.
So that gives you a basic idea. And keep in mind, as I said, we did this with every single grade, so I just thought, as a final note, I could share with you guys a kindergarten reflection.
Okay, my green team, how did your tower work out?
So we like put these stickers on and then we put these on. Like we put this on them and then we put these on and we put the marshmallow.
Did it stand alone?
No.
No. So what do you think you could do differently next time?
We okay. Put little stand things and you could stick it like
bottom? All right, but did you have fun? No? Thank you.
So, the reflection is part of it, and again, the whole piece around design thinking and so on, I think was real critical. So, something that is very, very interesting and also forward-thinking, in my humble opinion. Speaking of Dave Quinn, I'd also like to recognize him for authoring a $1,000 grant that we just received word last week that the Blackstone Valley Ed Foundation is funding. And it is a mini grant to establish a pilot robotics program at Nipmuc. And the thing that's unique about what Dave has put forward in this mini grant is to have a robotics program that is integrated into the content area. It isn't something that's just freestanding, like a club, like what we've done at Clough and here at the middle school, but an integrated project that fits into the curriculum. So he's now working with the English department, specifically Mike Clements, who's doing a unit around futuristic novels like 1984 and so on, and actually is going to use this grant to purchase robotics kits that develop artificial intelligence. So kind of, again, integrating it with the larger themes. So again, kudos to Dave, and I think it's a real promising start. And now I'd like to talk about the antithesis of all that fun stuff, and specifically MCAS. I thought, without getting into all of the specifics, I'd like to talk about what we're looking at as far as the release of the results. Now keep in mind, this past spring they transitioned to a new generation test, one that is done online. And we just received the results this morning, and they will be released to the public on Wednesday. So a few things that I think everybody needs to be cognizant of. So we received the results, we know what the results are, they're technically embargoed until Wednesday when they'll be released to the public. And then we anticipate sometime next week we will have the actual parent reports that go out to our homes. So keep in mind, this is the first significant update of the MCAS. Keep in mind, they're saying that the focus is on critical thinking, application of knowledge, connecting what you read and how you can write about it. And the key phrase is about college and career readiness, okay? And I'll have a little bit more to say about that in a minute. So something that I think people need to be very cognizant of is that we're very familiar with the 4 levels of MCAS: advanced, proficient, needs improvement, and warning, and obviously your target is proficiency. Under this new test, there's still 4 levels, except they are now classified as meeting expectations, then one rung above would be exceeding, and then partially meeting would be below, and not meeting expectations would be the lowest instead of warning or failing, as we know it. And you could see the difference in verbiage in describing each of the classifications. Okay? Instead of having a scale of 200 to 280, now you have a scale of 440 to 560, so a different numeric score, and this is what parents will receive as far as the reports that they get. So that's kind of the factual information. I think this is the piece that is fairly problematic. You're going from an existing system with 4 levels to a new system with 4 levels. 2 levels would be considered meeting expectations or proficient, 2 would be below it. I think it's very much human nature that one would equate, oh, advanced would be exceeding expectations, proficient would be meeting, and so on. However, the Department of Education is saying, no, that's not the case, okay? So I think the rub is this, that with this new test, they've created a whole new set of cut scores for every grade that is tested. And again, this is the first year, it's the baseline year, but they've created a cut score so that approximately 50% of students across the state will be meeting or exceeding expectations. Okay, so in a sense, by creating these cut scores, they've almost created an artificial bell curve, so to speak. Okay, so the piece that will take some adjustment, so to speak, is we will have kids and their families that are used to receiving a score of proficient, and then when they get their reports, they will be nearly meeting expectations. Okay, why? They've done that because they've changed cut scores. Okay, so you might be saying to yourself, why 50%? Why do we have this across the board? What they're doing is they're mirroring the results of the NAEP, or the National National Assessment of Educational Progress, which is administered every other year, where Massachusetts has been roughly in the ballpark of 50% proficiency. Okay. So here's the second rub, in my opinion. If you were to look at historically where Massachusetts has been on the MCAS, that's what the proficiency rates look like. And we've talked about this when we do the MCAS review each fall, that for different grades there's different cut scores, and as a result, certain grades have very high proficient rates, but other grades, one of the key grades, grade 4, grade 6, traditionally have lower proficiency rates because they have higher cut scores. Okay? So Maureen and I spent about an hour and a half on Friday listening to a webinar from the Department of Education trying to explain this. And the statement was made, well, gee, we're up to a 90% proficiency rate at grade 10, and look what that's gotten us. What it's gotten us has been a 30% of our high school graduates have to take some type of remediation course in college. Clearly, we need it to change. So I'm kind of sitting there listening to this, processing this, and I said to myself, so the change has to be doubling down on high stakes testing? We have to do more of the same? So I could probably go on for quite a bit longer, and I think this could probably be a whole topic of discussion for a full meeting, and I intend on continuing this dialogue. But I would characterize the attitude that we need to have as healthy skepticism in looking at this. And it's my full intent when we put out the MCAT scores, we send home the parent reports. I'm also going to include a letter from myself kind of explaining this is a new test, and with that new test is a new set of cut scores and a new set of standard setting, okay? By standard setting, I'm not saying the state standards, but the standards by which they create cut scores at the state. And as a result, there's going to be differences in performance. And for some kids that are traditionally at that proficiency line, they might be below it. Okay? I know that's kind of a lot to process, but you know, as I say in the background notes, I think the heart of the matter is not pursuing higher MCAS scores, it's pursuing more meaningful learning opportunities, more deep, meaningful learning. And that doesn't necessarily exist with trying to pursue higher MCAS scores. Okay? Phil?
So what's happening with the Common Core?
Great question. I would say the Common Core is alive. However, nobody's referring to it as the Common Core. You always hear it in this state referred to as the Massachusetts syllabus. But for all intents and purposes, the 2011 framework revision are the Common Core state standards.
Okay. So the MCAS testing that they're changing to and the way they're changing the test, they aligning it to the Common Core testing that we all were talking about
Correct.
a couple of years back?
Correct.
And
Correct.
Okay. So it's Common Core testing, but now called MCAS.
Correct. If you recall, the original game plan was to go to something known as the PARC assessment, which was a
Yes.
multi-state consortium. They bailed on it for political reasons.
Okay. So they did make that decision to move out of like the whole park approach and.
Correct, but it's still the PARC approach, it just has a different name.
We've just adapted it to where we
To
were.
MCAS 2.0 or next generation MCAS, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
And so this 2017 testing tested on Common Core curriculum. And would you say that across Massachusetts and here in the district, we're all aligned to Common Core in terms of our academic coursework?
Yes. Would I say 100%? No. I still think there's places where it isn't completely aligned. I think in looking at the test scores for 2017, and I've had an opportunity to look at the statewide results and the Mendon Upton results, they're down. The statewide results are down and Mendon Upton's are down. Is Mendon Upton's is down as much as the state? No. I think, you know, to go back to what I said about having a healthy skepticism, Phil just used the term political. I think there's a part of this of being established as far as cut scores is for no other reason than a political reason of, okay, we've got to move the bar, and let's move the bar down so that in 5 to 7 years we can show this incremental growth and so on.
So currently you're saying too that the high schools will continue to use the old testing framework?
Until 2019. So next year will be the last year of the existing MCAS. They're referring to it as MCAS Legacy.
So, okay.
So are you saying that the 10th grade test hasn't changed?
No.
It hasn't changed at all,
No.
but everybody else below them has changed?
Correct. And I wonder how the high school results were this year. I wonder if they look like 2016 and 2015. Yes, they do.
That's exactly
Yeah,
the same.
they're both over 90%
So, and
proficient.
wouldn't you say some of that decline that the state is seeing and that maybe we're seeing has to do with a different platform for taking the test instead of pen and paper?
That is an element of it. I realized there were one grade 3, did not test using computer, wasn't mandatory, and a bunch of districts either got waivers or did not use the computer-based testing, and the paper-based testing results were higher than the computer-based.
So we probably already addressed this, and forgive me for forgetting, Joe, but when we were finished with the testing, did we kind of survey our proctors and survey our
The
students?
state did.
The state did.
Mm-hmm.
How did they do that?
They did it online. There was a short survey that they took after they completed the testing through Pearson.
And did we talk to our students besides that?
I think informally, yes.
'Cause I'm just curious how.
I think,
mean, I've heard
what-
different feedback. from
What I've
different
heard
proctors.
anecdotally, pretty much across the levels, is there was more anxiety by the proctors than there was by the kids.
Mhm. I could see that.
Yeah.
Because I think adults in general just are more skeptical and apprehensive about new technology.
What was you said the criteria for the cut score was just the fact that 30% of the students needed remediation in college?
Correct, yeah.
That was the only criteria?
Part of the whole drive, Sean, behind the Common Core standards is to ensure that kids are college and career ready. And the mindset behind going to a new set of standards is what we've been using since Ed Reform of 1993. Yes, they are higher, rigorous standards to ensure commonality and consistency of the curriculum across the state. However, they're not rigorous enough because one of the data points that they have is 30% of all kids that go on to state colleges or universities require at least one remediation course. I think the heart of the matter of, again, my healthy skepticism is an event like taking the MCAS test now online really going to get at the heart of deep and meaningful learning that kids truly need?
Well, I'm not sure that.
In my
the
humble
standard-
opinion, no.
I mean, the standard of 30% needing remediation across state colleges, I'm not sure I trust that as a good criteria for coming up with.
Well, and
coming up
then
with
the
a
second
test
piece in looking at NAEP, the NAEP results, they're very proud that Massachusetts is number one,
score. Yeah.
but they're number one with a 50% proficiency rate. Hence the benchmark.
Interesting.
How do you anticipate, with this going out to parents next week, are you anticipating, if we're saying that our scores are gonna look less well than they've looked in the past, are you anticipating, a few phone calls?
Yeah, a few phone calls. I mean, do I think our parents are, I think our parents are so used to MCAS. I think there's a certain degree, I think what needs to be stressed, Tana, is this is just one piece of the puzzle. This is not the whole look of how well your child is progressing in their academic career. My letter is certainly going to stress that in no uncertain terms. When we talk about our scores and how they look at an upcoming school committee meeting, we'll delve in a little bit deeper.
Okay.
So just to follow up, so we've been on a plan, an improvement plan for the middle school to improve the MCAS scores.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna talk about this probably a little bit, but the fact that we've made gains there,
Mm-hmm.
how much of a decline are we gonna see? I guess we'll see, on Wednesday.
But is it really a decline or just a false, is it just
I
a
think
new,
it's
it's a new
standard.
setting of the benchmark of
It
where
is.
we're at?
So the Department of Ed would say you have no business comparing 2016 to 2017.
Correct.
Because 2017 is a benchmark. I think what's problematic about that is human nature as it is, if you have 4 levels of measuring something, and then you go to a new system with 4 levels of measuring. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so Sean, I'm gonna grade you A, B, C, or D.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna grade you 1, 2, 3, 4.
Exactly.
People are gonna
Yeah.
put them together. So that's a bit of the conundrum that we're in right now. And I think putting good information out there is important, but I think an ongoing dialogue with our parents and the community about what deep and meaningful learning is really about is really the heart of the matter.
Well, and also, if you look at how the MCAS scores were going for grades 5 and 8, and how they looked in grade 10, you're getting 90% proficiencies by high school. So
But the cut score is lower in 10th grade, right?
It's the lowest of all of them.
It's the lowest of all, so
But
to
it-
determine
I
proficiency.
guess what I was trying to allude to is, by the time, and we're talking about the same classes of students here, if you look through the grade levels on the different years, their proficiency gets higher and higher through our district as they
But-
move up to.
But the level of proficiency lowers as you get higher. Do you know what I mean? What
Yeah,
their-
I
their-
understand. I mean,
I know, it's
the
also.
numbers are communicated as the numbers,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Yeah,
but
but it's like saying, you know, if a just to use an arbitrary score, if a 90 is, you know, advanced
Yeah, yeah.
proficient, maybe a 75 or an 80 is an advanced proficient in 10th grade, so it's a different
No, I
gauge.
completely understand that, and that, I think that's the core of my question. Given that you could take a class, grade 5 out of 2009,
Mhm.
and follow it through the MCAS,
Mhm.
and they'll end up being 90% proficient, even though they were graded at 65% proficient
Mhm.
in 5th grade. So, you know, I'm not sure, all of this is apples and oranges, of course, but,
Yeah.
you know, are we succeeding as a school district at bringing the same children from, you know, from a possibly a medium proficiency to a high level of proficiency by the time they graduate?
Well, I know when you have this 30% score of saying that these freshmen now need remedial English, what do our students look like? Have we ever done that?
Yeah,
Test?
I get the data each year.
Be interesting to see how we're
we're-
doing.
Better than the 30%, but it's nothing to do a happy dance over. Last time
It's
I saw the
interesting.
report, it was something like in the ballpark of 18%.
Of our students
Of our
that still need
students
remedial
who,
English.
the only ones they can track that they know are students that are at the state colleges, so the UMass, the Worcester State,
Okay,
Westfield State, and so,
gotcha.
yeah.
See, I don't know how they do that in Massachusetts or what the criteria is, but in New York State, the criteria was they had teachers they needed to utilize and they filled up the remedial
Mhm.
classes with those. It had nothing to do with proficiency. So that's why I question, you know, being they're private institutions that have a different set of objectives.
Sure.
I'm wondering if those cut scores even have any relevance.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking in the back of my head. So-
Healthy skepticism.
Yes, very healthy skepticism. Anyway. Okay.
And I think last but not least, you have in your packet the latest year-to-date expenditure report for the FY18 budget. Anything that you want to highlight, Jay?
Well, let's put it this way, we spent about 75% of our supply budget already, which is pretty common by this time of year. We tend to order at the beginning of the year. It always amazes me how many things seem to come up that are related to building maintenance that you could just never imagine. Not like super expensive, blowing the budget out. It's just goofy things that I guess you look at your house and say, well, the boiler just seems to work every year. Well, here we always have some issue with something. So Ken comes to see me every other day to say, okay, well, we have to do this now. We have to seal this core, and he gives me a very detailed explanation that I don't always understand. But he does, and that's important. But all in all, we haven't had any snow yet. That's a good thing. So we're
70.
we want to keep it that way as long as we can. But other than that, I'm fairly confident right now in where we're at. I think the budget's in good shape. Talk to me, and I always say the same thing. Talk to me in March or April after the winter's done, and then I'll tell you whether we're in trouble or not. Is there any questions?
Lots numbers on.
So everything seems in alignment with previous years' terms on where we are right now. There's nothing like coming out. I mean, I understand that Ken will come and he'll ask or say, we gotta do X, Y, and Z, but these are nothing outside of the normal yearly. I mean, he's not coming in with an exaggerated amount of things at this point.
No, the only thing we've spent a lot of money on, we've actually already spent a little bit more than what was budgeted, is on what's called control systems in this building, which is basically the unit ventilators in each room and the HVAC system that we kind of tried to go and restore everything and replace hoses and pneumatics and all kinds of things like that. So we spent a fair amount of money on that. The heat's just starting to get turned on. We hadn't really turned it on before probably tomorrow. So when you turn it on, then you always have issues balancing the rooms out, because some rooms are too hot, some are too cold, and it takes about 3 or 4 weeks to get it all sort of balanced out, if ever. I've been in a lot of schools, and most schools are completely up and down all over the place all the time. I'm sure we're not much different.
On to new business.
Okay, I am absolutely delighted to have a great group of folks here tonight. First and foremost, a couple of our junior students that have been in the SI program for what, like 12 years now? Abby Murphy and Katie Nadolski. They were part of the group that traveled along with myself and Marianne Moran and Katie Cardamone and Julie Gisome to San Sebastian, Spain. So we're here tonight to talk about our trip, and probably most importantly, what are the next steps in establishing a viable two-way exchange with a school in San Sebastian. So I'll kick it to you, Katie.
Okay, we, as you said, we took this exploratory trip in September, the 8th through the 14th, so it was a short trip, 2 days travel to get there. But those kind of 5 days we had were really packed with a lot of stuff involving the school, the city, and the students and the whole culture of the area. We went to San Sebastian, which in the Basque language is part of the Basque country, up in the north of Spain, right near France, on the coast, as you can see. And in the Basque language, San Sebastian is Donasti, or Donastia, you could say it either way. They speak Spanish, which they call Castellano, from the Castile region in Spain, and they speak Basque or Euskera, and they're learning English. So we've been working with the English department there. Actually, at first through some virtual exchanges over the past year, and we were able, with the help of a MCAT grant and some fundraising programs that the girls helped with, and a lot of families showed their support through our GoFundMe page, so we were able to make this exploratory trip happen. And one of kind of our responsibilities when we went there was to show them our community and our district, and sort of convince them to embark on this homestay exchange with us, which these guys, the students, all of them, Dr. Maruschek and Associate Principal Moran, definitely stepped up their Spanish game and was able to communicate and express a lot of good stuff about our district and our communities. I think that really got them excited about it. So we worked with, like I said, the English department. The one next to Marianne there is Socorro. She's the director of the school. And then next to her is Bea, one of the English teachers, Oyana, another English teacher, and then Begonia is the woman in the middle of Amaya and Oscar, who is the English department head. Amayo is our Spanish language assistant, and she was here all last year with us. And she's the one who made the connection for us with this school and got us in touch with them in the first place. Oscar is one of the English teachers who I worked with last year, and we got to know the school kind of through him and the English department through him. So one of the things too we did there was meet the mayor at the Ayuntamiento, the town hall there, which was built originally as a casino. So he really went through the history of San Sebastian and how it was put on the map for Spain through, you know, tourism and summer houses from the king and queen and then other dictators. But now he's really trying to kind of open up the doors for the community by doing things like applying for the European Cultural Capital Award that they were awarded with last year. So that was a great experience for us, and they're hoping that, you know, the city and kind of helps them fund their trips here and the exchange with us.
Sure. So we had a very well-attended presentation to the families of the Santa Teresa School. And yes, we brought a few gifts with us. They were very excited about
They're
their.
not naturally patriots.
No.
right?
Some more of their own.
Yeah, they wore all their Patriots gear to the
Immediately,
presentation,
as soon as we gave them out, they were so excited, and I think that enthusiasm we really felt with the amount of parents that were at the presentation. We had a ton of questions, and we, I think, answered them, you know, in a way that satisfied the parents there, and we're hopeful that, you know, we'll have that. I mean, I think we're going to have that kind of reception around here too. But the girls did an amazing job answering questions as well on stage, and we were so proud of them in that moment. Really, I mean, it was 60 parents, so. Yeah, it was a great opportunity to get to meet their community even more. Right? And we spent a lot of time in the school. I don't know if anything else with the presentation.
Yep, yeah, all of us, you know, delivered a part of the presentation. They thought maybe they'd get 10 parents. We had 60 people show up. Everyone did their part in Spanish, and, you know, the girls were put on the spot with some questions and did an awesome job. So yeah, and it did generate for them, I think, a lot of excitement about coming to the United States and seeing the Nipmuc prom pictures.
Yeah, oh, yeah, right.
And you know, seeing the video that the girls made. They did a nice tour of Nipmuc, and it was really cool, and everybody was just like, wow.
I think the quote was that reminded them of High School Musical.
Yeah. It's just like an American movie, so
That's really great.
they were
What is
excited.
every day at Nipmuc?
Wake up and just song and dance.
Every day.
You're gonna have to do a musical or something for them.
So the school Santa
Flash
Teresa
dance.
is smaller than our Nipmuc per se, so it's a K through 12. Is it pre-K through 12?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
want to
it
talk
is.
about the school.
Yeah,
Oh, great.
K through 12.
So pre-K through 12 Catholic school, so it's a smaller school. It has just over 600 students. So their entire school is equivalent to just our high school. So when we talk about the 60 parents showing up, that was a lot of interest for them because they are coming from a smaller school community. Classrooms were open. They're just bringing in Chromebooks, so it's more traditional, I would say, than, you know, what you would typically get in a Mendon or Upton. But I don't know that that's out of character for, you know, a European country either. So, but they have smart boards, and obviously they were Skyping with Senora Cardamon's class. That was the connection there, and learning the technology. So very forward thinking and kind of where they're going and what they want for their kids, and the idea of the exchange obviously piqued their interest because they're looking for opportunities for their students and the real application of the English language. So they learn it from pre-K on. So by the time they're at the high school, they're kind of in the same situation as our students, have had a lot of time to practice it academically per se, but never kind of out in the environment. So we're excited about that portion of it. Missing any school items?
If I could add,
Yeah.
I can't think of a better partner that we could have from a culture standpoint. The thing that I was impressed upon, and you know, I've been in plenty of schools in my career. You could be in a school for an hour and you get very quickly, you get a sense of what the culture is all about. It's a very, very kid-centered culture. The thing that really impressed upon me is that they know their kids and they know their kids well. I think part of it is just the small nature of the school. They are because they're so small, a lot of the times the kids loop with the teachers. The teachers are known by their first names, but it's still very much a culture of respect, but I would say it's very much a nurturing place. I think our kids will get a very interesting perspective in the sense of just the culture. The culture is slower, you know, it's a longer school day, but you've got that nice block of 2 hours in the middle of the day for a midday meal. There's also a half-hour school-wide break. I thought it was very, very positive, and I'm really excited about the possibilities of the partnership. I'd like to hear from Abby and Katie, your perspective, and you know, I kept on saying we almost kind of threw them in the deep end. It was literally, we showed up, we're in the hotel parking lot, we're like, bye girls, and they're off with strangers. So maybe your perspective in staying with the families and in your perspective on the school.
By strangers, one of the families is saying
Yeah.
there's a teacher at the school, and
Yeah.
one of them.
Not random.
Guy on the street.
Who they had talked to before and stayed with and,
Yeah.
and all that. So.
Thank you.
Very well.
But basically, yeah.
Yeah, so we stayed in 2 separate families. My family had 2 daughters, and one of the daughters was mine and Abby's age, so we went with her to school and we sat in on her classes, and we thought it was really interesting sitting in on their classes. Definitely different than Nipmuc. They stay in one classroom instead of switching classrooms for each subject. A few of the classes were in Basque, which we didn't understand, so that was the only thing that we found difficult at school. And then at home, sometimes they speak really fast in Spanish, so at first it was difficult to understand, but by the end of the trip we could understand them, and it was really interesting to hear them talk. So I think the 2 weeks will be like an awesome experience for any immersion student, and will improve their Spanish tremendously.
And my family, I had a girl who was 18, so she was taking like classes at college, so we didn't go to school with her. And then I had a younger brother who was, I think, 14, and so I would see him in the hallways, and it was just funny because he would like introduce me to his friends. But definitely by the end of the trip we could speak much better, so going there for 2 weeks, the Spanish would just improve tremendously. And at first we were nervous about having them come here because we didn't think they would know enough English, but being like thrown into that, like being thrown into speaking Spanish 24/7, like just helped so much. So them being thrown into speaking English will help because we'll be able to help them translate like they helped us. So it was just cool to experience.
And the only concern that we've been hearing from students at Nipmuc is that junior year you start taking AP classes, and kids are nervous about missing those 2 first weeks of school. So we just thought we would mention that tonight because they're just nervous about that. So they don't know if they're gonna have to make up all that work, or if like some of it will be excused, or
Yeah.
so we just.
That question came up as well from the
Yeah.
students there during our presentation
Yeah.
there. They had the same concerns, so.
So what was the school day like over there? Like when did it start, kinda how did it run?
We were there for the,
It was like the first few days of school, so
Yeah.
it was half days, I think. And it started at like 8:10, did it?
Yeah.
Like 8:10, and then we would go through, I think it was 5 classes maybe, and then we went to lunch, but right after lunch we went home because it was the half day. So it ended we probably got home around 3:30 maybe. And that was after like walking home and walking to school every day.
Yeah, and the typical
well, that's
day,
the first week of school, so
Yeah.
their normal schedule is, from like 8:10, then they have 2 hours for lunch, like 1 to 3, and then they come back for classes from 3 to 5. Which is
So
the
they-
only reason that we were able to Skype with
Skype,
them,
right,
because
exactly.
I do the 9:15, like a 9:15 or 10:15, and that's their 4:15 and
So their morning,
3:15, and yeah, their last classes of the day,
their
so.
morning ends at 1 o'clock, where our high school is ending, what,
2 something.
Well, doing
2:15 or
business over
something?
there is
An
so-
hour,
Yeah.
an hour later than their morning.
start
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it, and they go back.
we had did meetings at, starting at 11 to 1, just the 2 hours. And they told us don't get into any big discussion right now. And we did a lunch from 1 o'clock to like 6 p.m. And then at 8 p.m. we picked it back up again and went until 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, different time frame.
It's a completely different way of doing business over there.
Interesting.
So what about extracurricular activities? I don't know if there was clubs, sports, or anything like that that you got to see or experience?
The girl I stayed with played soccer, and she had a soccer practice that she wanted to bring us to, but we had the presentation that night, so we didn't get to go with her. But I think in the 2 weeks we would have had more opportunity to sit in on some of their extracurricular activities.
Very cool.
Yeah, interesting experience for sure.
So what advice would you give to students if they were just to think about or to go next year?
What we came up with was just stay open-minded, because as soon as we got there, we were super nervous and we were like, we can't do this anymore. But our families were just so like welcoming, like they treated us just like a family as soon as we got there. So it was just an awesome experience, because 20 minutes in, we weren't nervous anymore and we were just taking in the great experience.
Very exciting opportunity.
So next steps?
So we put together, we're going
have a
back
plan,
tomorrow.
right?
No. Put together,
We're all set.
we put together a survey with the Santa Teresa team as well. They've actually already sent out their survey to just get preliminary interest and numbers from the communities of how many students we would want, or how many students would be, willing to host families, would like their students to participate in this homestay exchange. And once we have those numbers, we can look more towards the actual homestay exchange in September of 2018. We also will be doing an information night for parents to share more about the details and the experience. So, the details about.
So about how we're gonna run it, we're thinking, our hope is that we'll have 2 weeks of them visiting us first. They start school a little bit later, and then have our students travel back with them for 2 weeks. So it'll be a month-long experience together. Whether or not they're staying is a true exchange, which we would hope for, but we also know that there are a lot of people there who would also maybe don't have a student in high school but want to host. And talking with some of my students, the same thing today. There's one student that said, "Oh, I can't host, but I'd love to go," and another student that said, "I have a complete finished basement. However, fill it with people." So that's what we're looking for. And I know from our experience there too, we got to see how the day was like as a visitor. So we're thinking ahead at this point is the best way to make their experiences here most worthwhile in the classes that they see, the extracurriculars that they experience. So we'll hope we can do the same for our students over there.
Yeah, like Katie mentioned, they do have some other classes in Bosque there, so making the schedules or the experiences, we would account for things like that. What would be most interesting and beneficial for them to see.
How many students would be able to participate in a program like this?
So as of today, they have 8 students signed up at Santa Teresa. So, and they have a smaller population, as we were saying earlier. So, depending on interest, from this community as well, I think we kind of have to match our numbers. But, as Julie was just saying, there are some families there that even if they don't send their child, they might be interested in hosting. So that's why we're trying to do the survey with them, just to see, what those numbers can be or what they'll look like. But we've kind of said from the beginning, an average around,
10 to 12 is probably manageable.
Would be ideal.
What if you have, I have no idea what we would anticipate, but what if you had a greater interest? Would there be some sort of criteria criteria for selecting which students would participate? That would be a good problem to have.
It would be a great problem to have, and, you know, I mean, it happened in, you know, sending Katie and Abby with us too, there was an application process for that, and, you know, we never like to choose. I would love to take everyone, and I think moving forward, I think our hope is that, you know, any type of program like this continues to grow and grows into the other languages too. It's not just strictly
Just for
Spanish, you know, when you're in Santa Teresa, you're 15 minutes from France. There's no reason that we can't look for a partnership across the border to, our kids travel together and some go to Spain and some go to France. So I think it's the beginning. So I don't know what year one looks like, and I think that obviously there's always room for improvement and growth, and I know there's some nerves with the kids and what's gonna happen with schoolwork, and I don't think anyone can answer all of those questions at this point in time. I think that we know that it's great for kids, and it's gonna be one of those life-changing events probably that you know, you're never gonna forget. So I think we work out the details and we figure out kind of how to make those other pieces work. So again, so we don't know the answer, whether we'll have to limit it or not limit it, and again, it depends on what Santa Teresa can take as well, as far as hosting our students. That was the ultimate goal, was to keep costs down, so this host piece of back and forth and not having the third-party company kind of, you know, with that. So really, it's a plane ticket, it's some travel spending money while they're there, and the insurances, but beyond that, there will be, you know, minimal cost to the families. Yeah.
That's great.
Look forward to hearing more as
Yeah,
this
very,
develops,
very
and
exciting.
this is exciting for our district. Thank you. So next on the agenda is the Buffalo Memorial School Improvement Plans, and
So we have Deb is here tonight to talk a little bit about the work that she has done collaboratively with Jan and their respective school councils in developing goals for this current school year, so.
Thank you very
continue,
much.
Deb.
As Dr. Maruschek said, Jan and I have worked closely with our individual school councils, talking about big pictures. We've worked together with the leadership team to talk about and design our strategic plan. And then we've come together to come up with our common goals, and these are the same goals for both schools. So I'm here tonight to just kind of share them with you. So goal number one, as you can see, comes out of the work that we've done as a leadership team around Change School. And it's really about building the capacity of all stakeholders in regard to modern learning, the beliefs, the cultures, the context. And so in September, we worked together to provide our staff with some sample goals around professional development that reflect modern learning. We also, as a district, had Will Richardson come as our keynote speaker, which was very exciting. We also then had some breakout sessions where members of the leadership team shared some of the different pathways with our staff to talk about modern learning and what that looked like. We also had a book study led by Dr. Cohen around the most likely to succeed, and that was great. I participated with much of my staff, and it was wonderful because so many informal conversations, but also great pacing as far as reading the book and then responding to each other. It just opened up some great conversation. We're also providing opportunities for some informal professional development during lunch and learns, before and after school workshops. We're so fortunate in our district that we have such a plethora of talent and interests, and so we've really been working to access that through our teachers teaching teachers, which has been wonderful. And then our goal is to also to provide opportunities, or many opportunities for our teachers to visit other classrooms within the district, within the building, but would like for them to have the opportunity to also go out and visit other districts that are also looking at modern learning. And I just shared some pictures. We have on the far left some of our students Skyping with Santa Teresa from Katie's class. In the middle and on the right, our students working on the Marshmallow Challenge. And of course, all of those things have to do with modern learning. You know, the global education as well as makerspace, engineering, designing, that kind of thing. We're also continuing our work around implementing supports for all students that address both, you know, the social, emotional, as well as academic success. And this is an area that I personally am really excited about the work that we've been doing together with the elementary schools. We've worked as a DCAP committee to revise our district curriculum plan, accommodation plan, and we are really working to continue to share that document with parents during our 504 meetings, our team meetings, with our teachers during child study meetings, to really understand the level of supports that should be available through regular education. We're also working to build partnerships with outside health agencies to increase the resources that we have to share with our parents. We're all, in addition, we are in both schools doing some different things around conflict resolution through Second Step. We're doing social skill lessons, zones of regulation. We've been training the staff, providing additional resources. Again, Second Step bullying, kindness, caring, and respect. Those are very similar programs in both elementary schools in which our specialists and our counselors work to implement Second Step, as well as some lessons from Rachel's Challenge. Choose to Be Nice is another program that we use. And then we're also having our classroom teachers follow up with the supplemental lessons that go along with the Second Step curriculum. And these are just some pictures. One of the things that I'm so excited about is the RTI work that we're doing. We're doing some great early intervention with our regular ed students, particularly in our younger grades. We're also doing a lot of collaboration work and co-teaching, inclusion. We're seeing inclusion taking place, or co-teaching taking place in most classes, either through the special ed model or also through our academic tutors, our Title I tutors. So very few students are being pulled out. Instead, we're pushing in and catching those kids when the gaps are small and easy to close. And then this last goal has to do with technology integration around instruction as well as assessment, particularly in the area of English, arts, and mathematics. We've started working with the Director of Technology. Dave Quinn is such an amazing resource. He's like the ever-ready bunny. The man never stops. I don't know how he does it. He just go. And it seems, you know, I saw him like zipping down the sidewalk in front of this memorial today, zipping in. He saw me in the office, so he backs up, comes in, says hello, and it's like, man, you look like a man on a mission. And he was going to do some green screen recording with one of our third grade teachers who's doing a project-based unit around collecting markers and recycling markers to avoid them going to the landfill. So some really neat things are happening, really exciting. Also, teachers are looking at professional development opportunities, again, informally using the resources. We've got people at so many different levels around technology that the days of teachers working behind closed doors are clearly gone. And people are going in, observing in other classes, providing informal PD, etc. Same thing, PD during our staff meeting. All teachers using Lexia. We've seen some really great results with that. That's a regular ed program. Taking all kids from where they are to the next level, addressing reading, comprehension, grammar, etc. And we are looking to, and I hate to, especially after Dr. Maruschek's MCAS report even mentioned that awful acronym. But, you know, part of what we feel we need to prepare kids for is if we're gonna ask them to take tests online, they need to have opportunities to practice that. And we're very lucky in that the Go Math and the Wonders program that we have a plethora of different types of assessments, different types of opportunities. And so we've kind of set the bar with a minimum of what we're asking teachers to do to make sure our kids have those opportunities. And as you can see, they're using technology in a number of ways. One of the things that we're focusing on this year that's pretty exciting is kids also doing self-assessment, self-evaluation as part of modern learning. And so there's just a few examples of our kids working with their technology. Looking forward to an exciting year.
Looks like it.
Yeah. Thanks.
Are there any questions?
Questions or?
So I love your second goal too. I too feel very strongly about that, Dan, about the social, emotional, and being linked to academic success. One of the things that actually Maureen and I have had conversations about is the use of homework in schools, and this is kind of one of those buzzwords for me that I keep hearing parents talking about, not just at the elementary level, and I can only draw on my own experience where from class to class and child to child, the expectation has been different. Sometimes very positive, sometimes not as positive, but you know, just you get an array. But one of the things that I'd love to see addressed, and I think it really falls within this realm, is talking about homework and what is our schools or our district's philosophy on homework and why we use it, and how it helps our children succeed or how it hurts them from succeeding, and not being as socially and emotionally strong and healthy because of this. And I think it starts young, and I think it goes all the way up through high school. But I'd love to see how we can kind of build that into our social emotional plan.
And I couldn't agree with you more. Maureen and I have also had numerous conversations. Dr. Maruschek and I have also had conversations. I feel very passionate about the subject also. So I think that will absolutely be part of what we talk about. I know
I
we've
think,
had some
Diane,
of those conversations.
it makes sense, in my opinion, to start the conversation at the elementary level, because I think that's the safest place to start it. If the feedback that I get about the multitude of opinions about homework is predominantly at the secondary level, but I think starting the conversation at the elementary level is a wise place to start. I do think that it's a conversation, and I think it has to be a dialogue with all of our stakeholders, with our parents, with our teachers, with kids, where it's appropriate, because it's a bit of a Pandora's box. It's a bit of a third rail, if I can come.
I get that. I think everybody's going to have their own opinion, but I think it's important to have the academic opinion about what is healthy for students. You know, and I think parents can be involved, but I do think that we look to our educators and our administrators to kind of help us determine what is healthy for kids. And I think going from one standard to the next, those standards changing all the time, and sometimes kids drowning in it, and sometimes, you know, kids suffering because there isn't any practice. You know, I think it flip-flops back and forth. So I didn't mean it necessarily, I meant it more from what is the purpose of homework? What do we see the purpose of homework in this district, and how we're improving academic success because of our approach to homework? Because like I said, sometimes I think it's helpful, and sometimes I think it's hurtful.
And if I could just add to that, I mean, the demand on the children's time is becoming bigger and bigger, even at the elementary school level. So when you're talking about what is the purpose of homework, when a teacher doesn't realize what they conflict with when they start giving homework out, it creates a huge dilemma in the families.
Absolutely.
So,
family dynamics look different today than they did 20 years ago.
and I'm not particularly saying, as I think you were alluding to, Diane, I'm not saying that it's evil or bad or anything like that, but I'm saying that if we're all aware if you guys are aware as educators what the impact is of the family, then you understand those external factors that go, that's really important.
Absolutely.
If we can start factoring those into what we're doing as a school district, I think it ups our level of performance. So, just like you
Yeah, and I
said.
think it's kind of a district-wide, not necessarily just at the elementary level, but I do agree with you, Joe. I think the elementary level is a good place to start. Because it's not nearly as contentious as when you start talking about middle school homework and high school homework and what our kids are subject to. But I just think it's an overall philosophy about what is the purpose of homework. And is it helping us, or I shouldn't say us, helping our students, or is it helpful towards social emotional health and then academic success, because the two of them are directly linked.
And also, are we getting all of the information out of the homework assignment as teachers that we really could be getting? Or is it just an empty exercise that, go through this and then I'm not going to pay attention to the results, or I'm not going to understand what the negative ramifications of that were, or what that might tell me. So that...
You're singing to the choir.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting just
Very
because,
strong.
obviously when you have multiple children, or even when you have one, you're just gonna see the gambit. You're gonna see very purposeful homework, very collaborative homework, very interactive homework, and you're gonna see kids running through the exercise. And when you ask them, what did your teacher say? You got, 15 wrong on this one. And they can't say what the follow-up was. It was more just a run through of the exercise. So I think we have different perspectives from different teachers, and I guess just this so directly links to social emotional health for me. So I love that we're kind of talking about that social emotional health all the way through K through 12, but I do think that's such an integral piece of it. So I'd love for it to kind of be addressed starting at the elementary level.
Great.
Yeah, just motion and vote for approval.
Motion to approve the goals for Clough and Memorial.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed elementary goals for 2017 and 18 for both Clough and Memorial schools.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think you guys have your work cut out for you. I think it's ambitious, but I think through the dedication, hard work, this is
Exciting
certainly
time to be
something.
an educator.
Yes,
Very
yes,
exciting.
absolutely. Subcommittee updates.
Yes, so we have the Superintendent's Evaluation Subcommittee, which has concluded their work. I'm happy to say. After quite a lot of compiling effort, we've gone through this. So the Evaluation Subcommittee met once back in September, I believe, and we've had some weeks to work on this, and we've received all the evaluations from the subcommittee members. Thank you very much, Dr. Moruschek, for giving us all the information relative to the goals we wanted to achieve. For anyone who hasn't been exposed to this, the performance evaluation is split into two sections. One's on performance goals for the school and the school district, and the other is performance on standards, specifically for the superintendent. So those performance on goals are split into student learning goals, professional practice goals, and school achievement goals, or school improvement goals. The school committee, generally speaking, because there are a lot of comments within the evaluations submitted by each school committee member. But I can go through a couple of general ideas around this. The first goal that we had here for student learning goals was focused primarily on achieving better MCAS scores in the elementary school. And those, the school committee generally thought that those goals had been met, mostly because we've gotten the 2017 goals have increased markedly from their previous standards over the previous 3 years. There is a lot that remains to be done, obviously, and that's acknowledged in some of the comments, especially in terms of the new testing guidelines that we just went over today. And also the efforts that have been taken are acknowledged by the school committee, especially in aligning to the different standards that we have for NGSS and a variety of different things. So we felt that goal was met. In the professional practice goals, the main goal there was in outreach with district families, and I think Dr. Maruschek in his own notes around this area, he felt that he couldn't quite say that all the goals were met because there was a large plan, things still had to be done, and I think the school committee concurred with that, generally concurred with that. But it's also, as we move down below, I think it's also notable to say that there is a lot of activity that is very positive and very uplifting, if you will, in outreach to the community. It's a very good area. I think the school committee in general is pretty impressed with how that works. So that was rated as a significant progress. And then in terms of the school improvement goals, really the focus around here was in social emotional learning and trying to improve as we've just gone over. And there's a lot of very positive things in that. Understanding that we're in a transition period here as we move into the new strategic plan. So we felt that, generally speaking, the school committee thought that those goals were at a met level, okay? Then as far as the performance on the standards, there's instructional leadership, in terms of the standards, instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, professional culture, and overall performance. And those, we have a number of comments from the different school committee members, which I won't go into right now, but generally speaking, we are rating you very highly. Instructional leadership, exemplary, management and operations, proficient, family and community engagement as exemplary, professional culture as exemplary, and overall performance as exemplary. Generally speaking, the comments are that all of the talents and capabilities that you demonstrate on a daily basis are very much appreciated, and it's going to be very important as we move into the future to have those talents in place, because we're going to have to go through some transitions here, and I think we all recognize that. So that's the evaluation in a nutshell. I'm not sure if all of these are available for people to read.
The summary one is a public document.
Okay, good. So we'll make this available as soon as, I'll put the signature on it once I've gotten the approval of everybody, and that'll be the end of the evaluation. One more additional item. There's notes that you had in commentary, and I believe that those notes should be put into the final document, and I think you have to do that before the document is signed.
Okay, I can do that. I haven't signed off on it yet.
Appreciate it.
So, thank you very much. I'm humbled, to say the least, and I greatly appreciate your faith and confidence in my leadership, and I look forward to continuing the work for many years to come.
I encourage you to read all the evaluations that came from the different members as well. There's a lot more information than I could have summarized in the 5 minutes on the agenda.
Well, thank you for the work that goes into summarizing all of those evaluations to present tonight. So I know that that's not a small task, and it's greatly appreciated.
Yeah, it's okay.
Diane, I'm sure you can
I'm the
attest
rookie.
to that.
I'm the rookie, I understand.
So appreciate it, Sean.
You got a year's reprieve, Diane.
I know.
There is a lot of work that goes into it, and I think it represents our feelings about you in general, that you have done an excellent job for our school, and we look forward to that continued excellence.
Thank you.
With our school district. Is there any old business?
None that I know of.
Any correspondence?
No.
No? Okay. Future agenda items. We have the approval of the Miss Goldhill and Nipmuc school improvements on November 6th, and then the community screening of Most Likely to Succeed on November 22nd. I'm very much looking forward to that. Is there anything else for the good? No? May I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned at 8:17.